Welcome back to Hear Me Out Sports. I already dropped my quarterback video, so tune in now for the tight end video. Run it. Alright, we are here with tight ends, and again, week one was crazy. So, with the week one review, man, we did terrible. I gotta own this. This one's on me. 53%. All I can do is hope that Kiana and Chanson do better than me. Quarterbacks was better, but still kind of rough, coming up shy of 60%. Let's hit on some of these people real quick. So hits, Travis Kelce went off. Pat did well. He was one of those who maybe people didn't necessarily believe in, but he did well. Dalton Schultz, another one of those. So I'm excited for it. Get up for it. Misses, on the other hand, Taysom Hill, he was being used all over the field, but it was in a big play potential, so that's the reason why he came off scoring a lot. We had him as a sit, though. George Kittle, I mean, sometimes those heroes just don't perform, right? And Dawson Knox, man, that was a rough one. It was like 1.9 points. That is a tough pill to swallow. Now, close calls, on the other hand, Hayden Hurst, Dallas Goedert, and Mark Andrews came close to that fringe. Mark Andrews was almost a sit this week based off of our points. We want them to score 10 points in order for them to be a start. That's our threshold. So with that review, we're going to kick it off and go into Thursday night football, where we can see the Chargers face the Chiefs. And this is a great matchup, in my opinion, between two awesome teams. We got Gerald Everett, who kind of went off. I think he's a fringe player, though. His one touchdown made up for his 3 receptions. Not a lot of volume going his way, but we'll give him a week here, and we'll see if he's able to score another touchdown. That gets him most of the way there on those points. As far as the Kansas City Chiefs, we got Travis Kelce, which, again, I'm just starting him. He's automatic. I'm keeping him there. There's not much to it. Now we're going to go over to the Miami Dolphins and Baltimore Ravens, where we got Mike Gesicki as a sit. He had one target, people. That's not good at all. So, I mean, if you don't get targets, you don't get points. Mark Andrews, on the other hand, listen, he did not have a great game. He did break our threshold, so he's still marked as a start, but I'm also just going to start him every game until he probably drops below 10 points for multiple weeks. So without further ado, we're going to kick it over to Cleveland, where we got the Jets versus the Browns. Tyler Conklin. Listen, both these teams, they actually had some decent defense, only allowing 211, 207 yards respectively. Conklin is the clear tight end passing target. He, out of the 8 targets that went to tight ends, he accounted for 7 of those. So I guess all the passes are pretty much going Conklin's way as of right now. But we're going to see where this, I guess, goes in the future. And if he keeps getting targets and if he can make some big moves with it, maybe score a touchdown, then I'm going to keep him in the start sit column. But right now he's in the sit column. I think he's depending on touchdowns right now. Browns, on the other hand, they're a run-heavy offense, and so I'm sitting Harrison Bryant. I think he's going to be used more for blocking than anything else. Now let's go over to Detroit with their home game against Washington Commanders. Listen, I think Detroit's going to win this game, and I think it's going to be in large part just by spreading the love around. TJ Hawkinson, I like him a lot. I mean, that's all there is to it. He is a fringe player, though, because he did not get tons of looks and was guarded pretty closely in week 1. But he caught the 7 targets that came his way, and there is potential there. Now, Logan Thomas, on the other hand, I don't think it's I think it is a favorable matchup because the Lions, one of their weakest points is their linebackers, despite the hype surrounding Malcolm Rodriguez and some of these other guys. But I think that Carson Wentz isn't going to have the same game. I think that the pressure coming his way is going to make him panic and maybe throw some pretty terrible passes. So I don't want Logan Thomas starting this week. I've got him as a sit. Now we got the Colts and the Jaguars. I'm sitting them both. Kylan beat out Mo Ali Cox in week 1 in both targets and reps, so that's something to keep eyes on. But he'll really need to prove himself before I have him on the start list. It's especially concerning because Kylan and Mo are splitting reps, and I don't like that at all at any tight end position. So pretty much anywhere you see on this list where you see that they're splitting reps with another person, they're probably both going to be sits. Now we're going over to Jacksonville Jaguars. Evan Ingram also benched for me because of the target share. He was 4th in week 1 as far as where the targets were going. They're going to pretty much everywhere but him. I think he still got some targets, but he's going to remain a sit until you can get some more looks his way. Now we're going over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Cameron Brate. Listen, it's exactly what I said in my initial video last week. There's not that same chemistry. Rob Gronkowski, you're not replacing him. He was a phenomenal player, and he had such a good relationship with Tom Brady that I think that that's the reason why he performed well. Now, Cameron Brate, on the other hand, is just not the same, so we're going to leave him in the sit column. Taysom Hill, what an interesting point. I've got him benched for this week only because I don't know for sure if we're going to see the same stuff week in and week out as we did in week 1. He was being used all sorts of places, and I mean, we're going to have to look at his head coach, Dennis Allen, to see if he continues to use Taysom Hill all around. If Taysom Hill is planning on running, catching, passing, kicking, I don't know what else he could do. If he's planning on doing all that, then pick him up. I actually did pick him up as a backup. I replaced Cole Kmet with Taysom Hill. But I think that he could be a potential good option in the future if he is being used in that way. But I'm going to have to see where his value lies. If he's just playing as a tight end, he didn't have a lot of things going his way, but he did huge things with those few targets, those few shares. So that's why he performed so well. If he didn't have those big plays, though, it'd be a whole nother story. Now let's go over to New York, where we got the Carolina Panthers versus the Giants. Again, you got a split. Ian Thomas brought in 2 of his 3 targets. He had a good showing, but it's because one of those targets was for 50 yards. That's not always going to happen, especially from a tight end in general, but I guess we'll see. I mean, if he can win out there, it could be huge. On the other hand, Chris, it depends on his touchdown. He had 1 target for 1 yard, but also happened to have 1 touchdown. So, I mean, I guess if you want a very touchdown-dependent person, sure, go pick him up, but I'm not for him. Now let's go over to Pittsburgh, where we got the Patriots versus the Steelers. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, again, 2 tight end set. They're running actually a 2 tight end set, so they're both on the field, but they're going to be eating at each other's ceilings and lowering the floor in the process as well. So I'm going to sit them both. If you want any sort of decent point potential, I don't think you start any tight end where he's splitting reps pretty heavily, pretty 50-50 with another tight end. Now, Pat, we are going to start Pat. I think that he's just going to be a big game changer in some of these matchups throughout the weeks. He had a great showing despite not having any touchdowns go his way. He had 10 targets, though, and he fights for those yards after the catch. So he's got big play potential. He can get those touchdowns, which are only going to add to his good stats already. So we're going to keep him in there. Now let's go over to the Atlanta Falcons versus the Los Angeles Rams, where we got Kyle Pitts. He's kind of an automatic start. He's a good target. He's got a good target share. He needs to capitalize on some of those passes that are going his way. Now, I didn't watch the game, so those could have been horrible passes, but I think that, he's just one of those starts that you're going to kind of keep there. He's kind of been praised a lot, so it's going to take a little bit for me to sit him. Tyler Higbee, on the other hand, I'm going to sit him just because he did not have a ton of targets, and I expect that to... Oh, I guess he did actually have a ton of targets, but I expect that to decrease as weeks progress. And if they don't, and he can catch, 75% of those, then yeah, let's put him in the start column, because just based off that alone, he'll probably be getting 7 points just off catching the ball. It doesn't matter the yards. So I guess if he continues to get that volume, we'll put him in the start column. But let's see where the Rams kind of treat him. We'll see how the Rams treat him. Now we'll go Seahawks versus the 49ers. Look at all those people benched. All of them benched because there's just too much splitting. two of Seattle's tight ends had touchdowns, and that is just, I don't know, that's wild in my mind. It was a really weird game, and the Broncos defense just was trash. They were kind of allowing holes all over the place, so I don't think that the 49ers should have given that same love, but I just got him benched because I think they're all splitting around. Noah Fant was actually the starter, if I remember correctly, but I don't believe when you have that much sharing that you're going to have those guys breaking 10 points. So now we're going to the 49ers. The 49ers game was hard to judge again. It was marshlands that they were playing in. It was just floods. It was crazy, but I've got them both benched. I'm going to need some evidence that these two have any sort of potential and see which one is more loved, I guess, from Justin Fields, or not Justin Fields, but from the quarterback to see where he actually goes. And then depending on that, we'll see if we start him in future weeks, but they're going to remain a sit for the time being. We've now got the Bengals versus the Cowboys, where we got Hayden Hurst. This is kind of my sleeper here, so this is going to be my position rivalry of the week for tight ends. Hayden Hurst, he scored pretty well. He had 8 targets from a decent quarterback, and he could see some solid points in the future. I mean, any touchdown goes his way, he's going to be doing all right. Dallas Cowboys, I mean, Dalton Schultz, he did well. Now, the concern here, though, is that Dak Prescott's out. Is he still going to be able to get those targets? I think so, because I think the panic passes go to either running backs or tight ends. So we're going to start Schultz. He has a lower ceiling, though, so let's keep that in mind. But I think he remains one of their main targets next to CeeDee Lamb, and so we're going to keep him in the start column. Now let's go over to the Houston Texans with O.J. Howard performing well. Now that being said, I am starting him. So I think that he could do well. Broncos, they, again, allowed a lot of holes in their defense. So a couple of those quick dumps, I guess, to O.J. Howard, and he's got a chance. 2 of Seattle's tight ends scored against the Broncos, so why not a Texans tight end score? Denver Broncos, they got Albert O. I thought he was a big part of their offense. This is a pass-first offense. Wilson, although I don't like him, he can get the ball to his targets. So I think that he's got some potential, especially because last game he was so close to getting in the end zone, and that would have broken the 10 points, and we could have seen a lot more from him. Let's move on now to the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Arizona Cardinals. Zach Ertz is starting. He is tight end 1, and it's an all right offense. Listen, I'm not going to think too much about week 1. Let's not overreact. Let's keep him in. But my concern is his target share. But we're going to keep him as a start. Waller, on the other hand, he had long target average where he was averaging 19.8 yards per catch and had almost 12 points despite no touchdowns. So you tack a touchdown on there, and he's at a decent receiver, decent running back level. So Darren Waller is remaining a start, especially if they give up pretty much as much as they did, them being the Arizona Cardinals, give up as much as they did against the Chiefs. Now let's go over to Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears. Cole Kmet, man, can't trust him right now. It was a weird game, but he had 1 target. Like that's kind of saying something. Now that could be a huge difference week 2 versus week 1 just because of the conditions, the weather. But let's see how it goes. If he gets more target share, I'll look at him deeper. But right now he's staying on my bench. I traded him away, but I say we sit him. Now I think Tanyan is a fringe player because he's starting to build a rapport with Rodgers, and as I said in my quarterback video, that means a lot. This offense lacks a clear number 1, and he could step into that role and make a big difference there. It's a division game, so I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to perform well. So now we got the Tennessee Titans versus the Buffalo Bills. We're going to sit everyone here. Swaim may see the field more. As his coach said, he was the better blocker, so I think that they might keep him on the field a little bit more, but it's hard to start either of these two. Tennessee only allowed 156 passing yards in week 1. So with that being said, Dawson Knox is going to be a sit. he didn't get as much of the target share as I would have liked out of him. I think that Josh Allen just has so many other targets and that he's just going unnoticed. So because of that, we're going to keep him in the sit column. Now, we got the Vikings versus the Eagles. I've got Johnny Munt and Irv Smith Jr. Munt actually started the game, but they kind of had that 50-50 split, so I just can't trust that again, especially at tight end. If it's running back, listen, we can talk about it, but tight end, it's so hard to get points as it is that when you start splitting them with another person, it gets a lot harder. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles, on the other hand, I think Dallas Goedert will have a bit more looks coming his way just because I think the Lions actually did a really good job defending him, and I think it's not going to be the same here against the Vikings. I think there's going to be less pressure, which gives Jalen Hurts more time and less chance of him running the ball. So with that being said, we're going to have Dallas Goedert start. Now, I'm going to finish the video by saying, as I always do, like, comment, subscribe, DM us if you have any questions. We'll respond back, and tune in each week. Let us know how you feel about our starts and sits. Listen to Kayana as he covers the receivers. He's got lots of good content over there, and Chanson will be covering the running backs. So for all your fantasy needs, come hear us out here at Hear Me Out Sports. Logging off, this is Jace with the tight ends. We'll catch you next week.